Welcome to Candidate Conversations for the March 5 Rio Rancho Municipal elections. For this series, the Rio Rancho Observer has invited all city council candidates in for an interview to discuss why they're running and thoughts on city issues. Additionally, we have invited representatives from the city in to discuss 3 bond issues that are on the ballot. Hello, everybody. Today we have Rio Rancho Mayor Gregg Hull here to discuss the bond issues that are on the upcoming March 5 municipal ballot. So, Mayor, can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your role in the community?
Absolutely, Tracy. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate you having this podcast so that we can get this information out to all the voters. Because the one thing we do want to do is make sure everybody, makes an informed vote. Absolutely. And I'm Gregg Hull, Mayor of Rio Rancho. I've been the Mayor of Rio Rancho for 10 years now, so going on year number 11 after this election cycle. And I'm not currently on the ballot. Let me just put it that way. But appreciate the fact that, one of the things that I like to do is make sure that I get out in the community and talk to people about what's on the ballot to make sure, once again, as I said a moment ago, that we make an informed decision on how the things that are on the ballot impact the community directly. So always a pleasure to get out there.
Okay. So let's get right into it. There are 3 municipal bonds on the March 5 ballot. Can you give a brief overview of each one and what they will do for the community?
Absolutely. These are real simple. So the first one's the road bond. This one was originally implemented in 2016. When the voters approved it. And I think there's about a 63% voter approval on that bond then. And ever since then, every 2 years after that, it's enjoyed about a 78% approval rating. I think that's due to the fact that the voters really see where that money's going and the value that it's adding to the community. Now, that being said, the road bond is the primary funding source that we use to execute and implement road projects throughout the community. And we have been working on roads for
Well, I know a lot of people have concerns about the roads.
Absolutely. Well, and this is part of that concern, is making sure that we have the funding that we need to go ahead and do the road projects. But I can tell you, Tracy, for a city with an annual budget, when I first took office, I think the annual budget was about $65 million annually reoccurring. And the fact that in the last 8 years we've put a close to $120 million into the roads. We are fixing roads, and you can drive around. There's probably 40 major road projects I can point to. Some of the big ones that this road bond has paid for in the past: High Resort was redone in 2016. Sarah was redone in 2016. Sunt, Rockaway, Country Club, Meadowlark. Currently under progress is Northern Boulevard, Enchanted Hills Boulevard, most recently King Boulevard leading out to Northern Meadows, and Unser Boulevard from Abrazo all the way down to the city limits, which is right there at Black Arroyo. So this bond has been used for quite a few major road projects, and that's just the skin of the list.
So this is a renewal then? This
is a renewal.
Okay.
This is a renewal. So this would be renewed, and what this does is it generates about $10 million every 2 years. To go against a $1.5 billion problem. If we were to repave every road in the city, it costs about $1.5 billion. But this gives us $10 million to keep the progress moving. But to talk about that, the identified projects this year are Lima, if the voters approve this bond and approve the renewal. The roads that will get the attention are Lima Road, and that's over in the Western Hills area. Safe Light Boulevard, which is up in the Enchanted Hills area, and then 19th Street, which is over in the North Hills area. So those are 3 pretty major projects, and we'll be doing the underlying infrastructure as well.
Okay. And the other 2?
The other one is the public safety bond, and this is a bond that got started in 2018, and this generates about $4 million every 2 years that goes to public safety. Now, the big question here, Tracy, is does this go to salaries? No. This has to go to capital equipment like police cars, fire trucks, ambulances, engines. As a matter of fact, we used this bond money in previous cycles to buy a couple of new ladder trucks for the city of Rio Rancho. And those ladder trucks are critical to our firefighters to make sure that they can respond to emergencies in some of our tallest buildings like Russ Medical Center, Sandoval Regional Medical Center, the AMRET building. So we've got a few tall buildings in the city, not many, but there's enough there that if we needed that, City Hall, exactly. The top of the event center, yeah. So there are some areas where we need those ladder trucks to make sure that we can access. But then for the police department, new police cars have been purchased with this bond dollars in the past. We've gotten a new mobile command center that has been just invaluable in helping us respond to kind of set up a mobile command in the time of an emergency. I kind of point to in the past where we've really needed this, where we didn't have it, was when we needed to do a multi-agency response. So you remember a few years back when we had the gun discharged at Cleveland High School, having this piece of equipment on site. Now, we didn't have it at this time, but now we have it, and it's actually a great facility, mobile facility, to set up a mobile command center to make sure we're coordinating all the agencies and containing the situation as quickly as possible. So this is really important for capital equipment for the Rio Rancho Police Department and the Rio Rancho Fire Department. And as I say, this is the money that we supply the police and fire so that they have the equipment to respond to our emergencies, because they're going to show up on our worst day.
Right. And so it sounds like this one is another renewal then?
It is another renewal,
okay.
Absolutely.
And then the third has to do with quality of life, right?
Quality of life. Now, over the years, as you know, some of our facilities are getting older and older and older, and they need a little bit of repair. And if you think about some of the community centers throughout Rio Rancho, whether that be our parks, Sabana Grande Recreation Facility, Star Heights Community Center, some of the libraries, some of these facilities that are starting to age a little bit, show a little bit of wear and tear, we need to give them some love. And so in this particular bond cycle, I think we have Star Heights identified as some repairs that are going to be done to that. There's some park upgrades and improvements that are going to be done there. And then also some improvements and some materials and supplies for the libraries as well. So, and this is also a renewal. Now, this bond cycle just started in 2022. So this one just started. Yes, it's pretty new, and this would be its first renewal to pull this one back in, and it's giving us the money to start to address some of those aging buildings that we have throughout the community that have needed some TLC, and this is going to give them that. The other thing, back to the public safety bond, is that that's also being used to do some facilities improvement as well, whether that's the fire department's improvements or some of the police stuff that needs to be done as well. So not just necessarily all equipment, and sometimes it is facilities as well.
Yeah. So was like the Mariposa station reopening part of that, or was that
I believe
something different?
I will have to check on that, but I believe some of the money from the previous bond was probably used for Mariposa for equipment and upgrade and stuff like that. So I believe it was, but I'd have to go back and check my records. I've slept since then, right? So, but we're focused on the new ones. But I'm pretty sure we did use the bond, the public safety bond, to buy the new apparatus equipment that is in the Mariposa Fire Station.
Okay. And then you said that the road bond, I believe you said, was $10 million. How much were the other ones again?
Okay, those have always been right around that $10 million mark.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah, we've kept that mill levy right at about the same amount.
Okay.
Because that's how we can, and I know one of your questions, and I don't mean to jump ahead of you, but what's the financial impact of these bonds? And so that kind of leads me right in. It gives me that segue to go into this. Is that we've tried to maintain we have maintained the same mill levy on the road bond, on the public safety bond, on the quality of life bond. That's how going forward, these are not generating any tax increases. Now, as the values in Rio Rancho do start to escalate, these bonds will generate a little bit more money based on property values. But that being said, keeping the mill rate at the same and just renewing it over and over again make sure that we're not asking the taxpayers for any additional money, because we want to live within our means and do the best we can with the money that we've been given.
So if they're all approved, the residents won't see any tax increase.
That is correct. There would be no tax increase. But that begs the question, what if they fail? Will the voters see a decrease in their taxes? So I always like to have that number, because, Tracy, as you've probably heard out there, when people say, well, they always say if you vote for this, your taxes won't go up. Well, how much will they go down? Well, I have the answer to that question. The answer to that is, if you took a $300,000 valued house, let's say you had a house that was valued at $300,000, your taxes on that particular house would go down approximately $90 a year for a $300,000 valuation on a house. So that breaks down to $30 on the 100,000. So you can kind of do the math there. If you had a $100,000 house, your taxes would come down $30 a year. Now, we recently put out in our newsletter a little breakdown of where taxes go in Rio Rancho, and we showed that Rio Rancho gets, out of your total tax bill, Rio Rancho is about 27% of that total tax bill. And if you had a $300,000 house, your tax bill would be about $3,160. So if you take $3,160 minus 90, that's where your number is going to come out on what your annual tax bill would be there. But that gives us the next segue into the next question as well is, well, if they don't pass, are we still going to do the work? Right. That remains to be seen because this is $10 million that if we didn't have it, I don't know where we would get it.
Okay. So some of these repairs that people are asking for might not get done if these don't pass.
Correct. I want to remind that there was a big setback in 2011. The voters came out and they were frustrated with the work that was that they didn't see the work that was getting done, and this was before my coming into office in 2011. But the voters came out and voted the road bond down, and that essentially set the city back at least 10 years because it wasn't until 2016 that that we were able to put another bond back on the ballot and get that back out to the voters. So really, prior to the 2016 bond, there was a lot of neglect. There was a lot of decay that was going on in the city streets. There was no money being put toward repairing these streets. So they did get into a very bad condition. So for the last 8 years, we've been playing huge catch up on trying to get these roads fixed. But that's why in the last 8 years, we've also seen more money invested in the last 8 years in the roads than what you've probably seen in just about the city's history when it comes to the actual fixing of roads. Now, most of the roads that were put there by developers. But when it comes to the city actually maintaining that infrastructure, $120 million is a lot of money considering the resources that we have.
Okay. And now if these do pass, but let's say there's unexpected costs or inflation gets in the way, what would get priority? So
we're going to continue to prioritize all three of these, to be quite frank with you. And and it would be up to the governing body and the Public Infrastructure Advisory Board to say, well, let's draw back on this one or that one if we didn't have enough money. But the one thing I can say is through careful and smart money management, we have set cash aside that if we do have some inflationary costs, which we have experienced on quite a few of our roads, and I'll tell you about a few of those here in a minute, but through inflationary costs, we have been setting aside money to make sure that if for some reason the $10 million is not enough to cover the cost of these particular projects, we have some money to make up the delta. And we've been budgeting for these overruns because of these inflationary costs. And let me tell you, we've seen some projects take pretty steep increases. Recently, we did King Boulevard from Unser to Wilput, which is going into the Northern Meadows community. Pre-pandemic, I think we were pricing that project out somewhere between $5 and $6 million. After the pandemic, when we were actually able to get that thing done, it came in closer to $9 million. So it was a pretty substantial increase once we actually put that project out to bid. And what we do is when we go out to bid, we give the contractors the complete scope of projects, and then they bid on it based on the things that we've asked for. Now, in this particular case, the other thing is you've got so much in equipment and resources deployed throughout the state. It was actually hard for us to get bidders on these jobs. In that particular job, we put it out to RFP, and I think we might have done. It was either that project or another one. I can't remember which one it was, but there was one project we had to put out to RFP twice because we got no bids on the first time we released it. It's just because there is so much road work going on throughout the entire state of New Mexico. And I remind our listeners that we're not the only city fighting with infrastructure problems. You know, this is not magically a Rio Rancho problem. This is a statewide problem. Most recently, the state was given the TRIP report, which is a big statewide report on the condition of roads throughout the state. And this is a report that they give to the legislature to try to help prioritize where that funding needs to go to make sure that we're doing the infrastructure projects that really have an impact. And that's no different than from what the state does to the county does to what the city does. We look at the available resources that we have. We identify the highest target priority projects that we can possibly find. And we go after those to try to make sure that we're getting the most value for the money and the biggest bang for the buck. But I will tell you, Tracy, we've gotten so many main roads done. We're starting to get into some of the the collectors and some of the residential roads now. And that's going to be a little bit harder for the citizens to see. So the citizens need to go to the city's website at rrnm.gov and put a search in there for road repair. We've got an entire website dedicated to telling the citizens what we're doing in road repairs. Also, we're doing regular updates in our city newsletter that's going out to every citizen out there, talking about the roads that we're fixing, how we're paying for those, and how we prioritize those roads to make sure that people understand that we're using engineering standards, traffic studies, decay of road, population, really a plethora of different factors that we come up with an idea that says, okay, we think that these are the next roads that we need to target. And of course, money's a big factor there too, right? So do we have enough money to do the big projects?
Okay. And you kind of touched on, what will happen to the property taxes if it fails. What happens to these projects and these road maintenance and the facilities maintenance and whatnot if these bonds do not pass?
Well, obviously, with the purchase of equipment, we got to put that on hold. Police cars, fire trucks, ambulances, we have to tap the brakes on that and see if we can find the money somewhere else. Now, that's collectively about $4 million, so that's not as big as the road bonds. But I would say that those are just absolutely important to the community from a public safety standpoint. Now, on the roads, once again, not being able to deploy $10 million, most cities don't just have $10 million laying around where they can pick up the difference on that. So it's definitely something we would have to reevaluate. I'm not saying we would cancel every project, but we might have to look at our reserves and say, well, can we get the Safe Light project done or can we get the Lima project done? Now, the Lima project, that's buried in one of Rio Rancho's older neighborhoods. So if you live in Enchanted Hills or you live in Rivers Edge 1, 2, and 3, if you live in Loma, Colorado, you live in Mariposa or Northern Meadows, you probably don't know where Lima Road is. But for somebody that's lived in Rio Rancho for as long as I have, my kids went to Lincoln Middle School there. And Lincoln Middle School is on Lima. And that road has not been fixed since my kids went to school there. So that one has come to fruition and it needs to be done. And so whether or not we could carry those projects forward or not is always a question. I mean, we're going to continue to try to do road work where we can. But let me just say that if we lose the $10 million, if you look at the road funding that we've done over the last 8 years, out of the $120 million that we've deployed, give or take, and once again, I'm rounding to a number there. It could be between $110, $120 million. But out of that money, only $40 million of that came from road bond, from this bond approval. So that means that for $60 to $70 million we've gotten from other sources. And those other sources are state and federal government, the two biggest sources, because we use these bond dollars as what we call matching dollars. Yes, to leverage these others, because if we don't have the matching dollars, we can't. If we don't have the matching, or as I call it, skin in the game, we don't get those other dollars because they don't want to come in and be the only one that's fixing our problem. They want us to have skin in the game, and we've been able to use $40 million as leverage to get close to another additional $60 million.
Okay. That's all I had for you. Is there anything else on these bond issues that you'd like to touch on that we haven't talked about yet?
I would just ask everybody to share this podcast so that people can go out and make an informed decision on what these bonds are about, and make sure that you let everybody know that there is a citywide election, and I know you're going to cover that to some degree, but in this particular case, the bonds are citywide issues. So I do know there are some city council races right now. But if you don't have a city councilor running in your district, you still have a ballot to fill out. So I just want to touch base on that real quick, because I think a lot of people think, well, if I don't have a city councilor, I don't have to go to the polls. Right. So like the people in Northern Meadows, they don't have a city councilor running in their district. The people in Cabazon don't have a city councilor running in their district. The people in Enchanted Hills don't have a councilor running in their district, but they still have a ballot to fill out. So I just want to tell everybody.
Yeah, it still has an impact on them.
Yes, get out and fill out your ballot, because whether it's Enchanted Hills or anywhere else in the city, I don't think you can drive anywhere right now and not find some orange barrels somewhere. So these road bonds do have a definitive impact on how we move forward in our transportation system right here in the city of Rio Rancho.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you so much for your time and for coming in and talking this over with us so that our readers and viewers, listeners, have a chance to learn more.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate you, Tracy, and appreciate everybody that tuned in to listen to this today.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Hello, Rio Rancho. Mayor Gregg Hull here, encouraging you to get out this year and vote in the municipal election. We have city council races and 3 very important bond questions on the ballot. So I want to encourage you to get out to the ballot between now and March 5th. Those dates again, between now and March 5th. Go out and cast your vote and make sure that your voice is heard in the Rio Rancho municipal election. Thank you again. I'm Mayor Gregg Hull, and we'll see you around.
Rio Rancho municipal elections are slated for 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. March 5 at a variety of locations in Rio Rancho. Residents can vote at any polling location no matter their address. Voting centers will be at Broadmoor Senior Center Clerks Annex, Plaza at Unser Marketplace, Loma Colorado Library, Rio Rancho MVD on Sabana Grande Avenue, the Hub at Enchanted Hills, Rio West Business Center, Cabazon Community Center, Rio Rancho Middle School, Cielo Azul Elementary School, Puesta del Sol Elementary School, Lincoln Middle School, and Colinas del Norte Elementary School. Early voting kicks off February 6 at Broadmoor Senior Center Clerks Annex with hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday through March 2. Saturday voting kicks off February 17 with hours of 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Additional locations will open for early voting February 17 at Plaza at Unser Marketplace, Loma Colorado Library, Rio Rancho MVD on Sabana Grande Avenue, the Hub at Enchanted Hills, and Rio West Business Center. Absentee voting begins February 6. Voters may cast an absentee ballot by submitting an application to the city clerk's office no later than February 20. Ballots must be returned to the city clerk's office no later than 7 p.m. on Election Day, March 5.